Our final speaker, to the surprise of many of you, is Ambassador Bashar Jaafari, the permanent representative of the Syrian Arab Republic to the United Nations. Ambassador.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on this Saturday. Hot Saturday, humid Saturday. Thank you, thank you. So thank you so much for coming this very hot and humid Saturday to listen to us. I know that sometimes politics are boring, would bore the listeners. However, the issue is very important. It's not only about Syria, but it is about all of us. It's about USA, it's about Syria, Iraq, the Middle East, the whole world. And we will try to elaborate a little bit by adding to what my distinguished colleague, the Honorable Senator Richard Black, has just pointed out, and to what Mr. Ramsey Clark, also my distinguished friend, said before my arrival. Well, history has shown to us that lies are not and could not be eternal. We know for sure nowadays that history, many tragic episodes in history were based on lies, meaning they were baseless and without any foundation. I could share with you hundreds of examples about what I am saying, derived all of them from the UN itself, from the United Nations, where I represent my country. I think that Senator Black and Mr. Ramsey Clark have not left too much for me to say. However, we have indeed too many information to share with you. We could speak about what's going on in the world in general, but in Syria in particular, for hours, if not for days. And you would be surprised because you have never heard anything of this information I'm going to share with you. It is a great honor for me to have the opportunity to address this August audience from this podium in St. Bartholomew's Church in Manhattan. I convey to you my sincere salutes and best wishes, and I thank Schiller Institute and thank you all for offering this great honor to me and to my colleagues. We meet today while we all are recalling the tragedy of September 11. It was one of the most sad and grievous days in the whole history of the United States. It also was a harsh and difficult lesson to learn for all nations and governments that terrorism recognizes no boundaries or identities and therefore should not be justified, protected or concealed. I'm saying this because Senator Black has somehow gave some hints about the Saudi links to the events of 9/11. And I will elaborate a little bit on this issue later on. 15 out of the 19 terrorists who did the 9/11 attacks were Saudis. They were not Syrians. They were not Iraqis. They were not Algerians. They were Saudis. These same Saudis, formed by what is called, commonly speaking, the Wahhabism, which derives from the name of the founder of this school of thought, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. Wahhabism derives from Abdul Wahhab, who appeared out of a sudden in the Hijaz, the old name of Saudi Arabia, which is a fake name actually. Saudi Arabia is a fake name of the country because Saudi means Al Saud, the family of Saud. So as if you are changing the name of your own country to become the United States of Obama. So they stole, this family stole the name of the country and transformed this country to fit to their radical agenda. That happened in the late 18th century. The funny part of the story is that this school of thought was facilitated, created, and endorsed by the British intelligence at that time. So the British intelligence facilitated the creation of this radical movement in Islam on purpose, of course. You know the British, how they act. Nothing is for free. Immediately in 1815, this crazy guy moved towards Damascus and Karbala in Iraq. In Karbala, he attacked the shrines of the Shia Muslims. And in Damascus, he tried to invade the city, but the Syrians stopped him and defeated him on the doors at the walls of Damascus. Then he retreated and came back to where he came from. I'm giving you this background to show to you that this crazy movement is not a newcomer. It has been there for centuries. Couple of times protected by the British, then by the Americans. It is not because they like them, but it is because their craziness fits to their agenda. Islam is not about Saudi Arabia. In Damascus, in the greatest mosque of Damascus, called the Umayyad Mosque, in the middle, in the heart of the mosque, which is the biggest and greatest mosque in Syria, we have the shrine of Saint John the Baptist inside the mosque. The grave of Saint John the Baptist is in the middle of the mosque, where Muslims as well as Christians visit the grave and make their prayers. Senator Black told you about the Mufti of Syria, this wonderful man. Could you believe that his main advisor, his political advisor, is a Christian? The Mufti's political advisor is Christian. Only in Syria. Only in Syria. This is why we are extremely proud of our secularism, secularity. We are proud of what we are, whether we are Muslims or Christians, but we are not ready to become as crazy as the Saudis are. And we don't share at all their concepts of religion. By the way, what ISIS is doing and all these fanatics groups operating in Syria and Iraq, those who are beheading the boys and women and girls, they have inherited beheading people by sword from the Wahhabis. Till now, ladies and gentlemen, in Saudi Arabia, after the Friday's prayer, they behead people in public squares. Till now, it is not only ISIL. In Saudi Arabia itself, every Friday after the prayer, they behead people publicly in the public squares by using sword. So the story is not new. It is not, ISIL is not a newcomer. ISIL has been there for centuries, represented by the Saudis. And this is why they are protecting them and defending them and sending them weapons and money. Most of us in this world believed after that black day of 9/11 that there will be a united international stand against terrorism. We were all optimistic at that time, if you remember, that finally we will get together to fight terrorism, and that all nations will fight together against terrorists and their supporters, funders, and their inspirational leaders as well. Unfortunately, what happened next was the invasion of Iraq. So if the Saudis attacked New York, the Twin Towers, why going after Iraq? If the main reason was to revenge, right, against what happened in 9/11. And we all know and we all knew at that time that it was a Saudi conspiracy. Then why attacking Iraq? Iraq is a secular country like Syria. Syria and Iraq and Algeria are only the three secular governments in the Arab world. Iraq out of the picture now. Iraq has become a hub of international terrorism after the spreading of George Bush freedom over there. Algeria, you know, Algeria was tested before us in the early 90s. They sent to them an early Arab Spring, but it was defeated, thanks God. So only Syria remains. Only Syria remains. And Egypt recently. And Egypt recently, thanks God, after the eviction of Morsi, who belongs to the same family of the radical movement of Islam. It's not about Islam. It is about radical movements, pretending, claiming, alleging that they are representing Islam, but they are not. Islam has become a good business for manipulation. Very good business for manipulation. Very good business. Everybody makes business out of Islam very, very cheaply. And we will try to explain why. It's not about politics. You are all fed up with politics. I am also fed up with politics. It is about geopolitical dimensions, rivalries, competition, dominance. Then we said, unfortunately, what happened next was the invasion of Iraq under the very same pretext of fighting terrorism. That was the funny part of the story. When they invaded Iraq, when George Bush invaded Iraq, he said that he was doing that to combat terrorism and getting rid of the wrongly alleged weapons of mass destruction. Again, another lie. You know it. You know it, I mean. And let me tell you this story. I'm an eyewitness. I work at the UN, and I know what I'm talking about because I was there. A story that none of you have heard in the mainstream media, as Senator Black said. After the invasion of Iraq, the United Nations, under the pressure of Tony Blair and George Bush at that time, sent what we call an investigation commission called UNSCOM, headed by a Swedish guy, scientist, to find out the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The purpose was to show to the so-called international community that the invasion of Iraq was based on facts. There are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and we've got to find them out and show them to the international community. So they formed this commission of investigation and send it to Iraq. Of course, when I say commission, it's about hundreds of people, all paid off by the Iraqi government, the Iraqi assets, freezed by United Nations. Billions of dollars were spent on the activities of this commission at the expenses of the Iraqi people. This commission spent how long? From 2003 and even before, up to 2008. 2008, it was about to say, to close the file, because the lie has become too big to swallow. So they gathered the Security Council and asked the Commission to submit its final report. But the funny part of the story is that this final report doesn't include any hint that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. So the Commission wouldn't be able to say that, sorry, gentlemen, members of the Security Council, we haven't found anything in Iraq. That would run against the mainstream propaganda spread by George Bush and Tony Blair at that time. So everybody was cornered in the Security Council. They need to shut down the file because it has become costly and Iraq has become another Iraq, and it is time to put an end to all this story. What to do? They gathered a meeting of the Security Council at midnight. Midnight. There were nobody except the 15 members of the Security Council. In few minutes, the president hammered the meeting and said, we endorsed the report of the commission without saying anything, whether they found something or they didn't find something. The issue is dead. Now, what to do with the archives of the commission? The archives, a big scandal. The council decided, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me carefully. The council decided to put the whole archives in iron cages, resisting fire, with locks, digital locks, that only the Secretary General know the code. Number one. Number two, these locked cages will not be reopened before 60 years from now. I'm sure you haven't heard about this story. Nobody would tell you this story. This is what happened. This is how they killed the investigation about why Iraq was invaded. And now, none of us in this room would be able to wait 60 years to disclose that a big lie took place at that time. It will be too late to bring the responsible accountable to justice. There will be no George Bush, there will be no Tony Blair. There will be 3 million Iraqis killed, 1 million Iraqi widows, millions of Iraqis without father, millions of Iraqis refugees in the world, and the whole Iraq is destroyed. Plus hundreds of billions of dollars, which are the Iraqi assets overseas, have gone, evaporated. Like the $800 million of Libya. Nobody knows where this money is. $800 billion. This is Libya alone. The result of the invasion of Iraq was killing millions of civilians, as I said, destroying the infrastructure and having a failed state there. And more importantly, transforming Iraq into a hub of international jihadist terrorism. I'm saying this because all these so-called leaders of ISIL, all of them grew up in the American jails in Iraq. All of them. They were taken care of by the American soldiers in Iraq. So they knew them, how dangerous they are. And they didn't deal with them accordingly. Why? Because Mr. Bremer was insisting on dividing Iraq on a confessional, sectarian, religious basis. The Iraqis lived side by side for thousands of years until Mr. Bremer came and found out that this shouldn't continue like this. We've got to divide the country. We've got to give a part to the Sunni, another part to the Shia, then a part to the Kurds, another part to the Assyrians, and then etc., etc. Would that amount to say that the Iraqis were dupe and stupid for living side by side for thousands of years before Bremer came? Today, and after 6 years, my country, Syria, is still suffering of the fiercest terrorist war in the modern history of the humanity. This unprecedented barbarian war reflects the bitter fact that terrorism is still privileging from safe havens, money resources, some well-known government supports, and the growing of terrorist ideologies and shelters around the world. Why I'm saying this? Because it wouldn't be that easy for a terrorist to leave Sydney in Australia, to take the flight, to change the flight 3 times, get 5 visas, Thailand visa, Indonesian visa, Cambodian visa, whatever, and then find himself out of a sudden in Istanbul, at the Istanbul airport in Turkey. Then a group of people would come to welcome him upon his arrival and escort him to the Turkish border with Syria. And then somebody would give him money and weapons and facilitate his entry into Syria. This is not a tourist. This is not a tourist. This is a terrorist known in advance by the Australian intelligence services before he left. The people in the Western world, unfortunately, some governments were betting on the fact that, you know what, we have this garbage in our societies. Let us export them to Syria. Let us get rid of this garbage by sending them to Syria and Iraq, where they will kill Syrians and probably they might be killed by the Syrians also. But finally, we will get rid of them because they are a burden in our societies. The problem started when these terrorists killed Syrians and Iraqis, but some of them changed their mind and wanted to get back to Australia, to Belgium, Paris, London, Germany, USA, Canada. And that was a big problem because the scenario was totally different. These garbage shouldn't get back, initially speaking, but started to get back. And the Western democracy wouldn't be able to prevent them from doing so. So what was the solution? The solution is the British Prime Minister, the Australian Prime Minister, the Belgian Prime Minister, the French President, decided to withdraw citizenship from these terrorists if they dare getting back. What would that mean? That means, you know, guys, continue killing the Syrians until they are killed. But don't ever think about getting back. And this is what's going on now in Syria. These garbage cannot go back to where they came from because they lost their rights to citizenship. Figure out that these prime ministers I have enumerated did not say that if these terrorists will get back, we will take them to court. They didn't say that. We will hold them responsible. They didn't say that. We will hold them accountable. They didn't say that. So they didn't say that these people are terrorists. They said, if you get back, we will withdraw the citizenship from you, meaning you are a good terrorist. As long as you are continuing to kill the Syrians, you are a good terrorist. But if you think getting back to Paris, Brussels, whatever, Sydney, then you will become a bad terrorist. Yesterday, while I was reading your invitation to this great event, many noble ideas stopped me, especially those about a better future to our nations, away from wars and conflict, particularly the words of Friedrich Schiller, the founder of Schiller Institute. And I quote him, "Born for that which is better." End of quote. Unfortunately, again, what is happening until today in my country, Syria, goes totally against these great human principles. Syrian people suffer until this moment from terrorism which is supported from regimes of well-known countries like Qatar, Turkey, France, and Saudi Arabia, Wahhabi family. Needless to remind you here of the basic role of Saudi family in supporting and funding terrorists who committed the brutal crime of 9/11, as I said at the beginning, without forgetting the dangerous role of their prehistory religious clerics who still inspire terrorists by ideas of jihad and hatred of other religions and ethnics all around the world. Another story. I'm a storyteller. I apologize. I was ambassador of my country to Indonesia, the biggest Islamic country in the world, 235 million Muslims in one country. But this country is composed out of 17,000 islands. This is why we call it the Malay archipelago. It's not an island, it's an archipelago. It's a huge amount of islands. The story is the following. And I told Senator Black this story in one of our meetings, actually. Upon my arrival to Jakarta, I was surprised that every Friday after the prayer, thousands of girls and women, young girls and young women, gathered in front of the Saudi embassy in Jakarta. I asked the Saudi ambassador, "What's going on, ambassador? Why these people are gathered in front of your embassy?" He said, "You know, ambassador, these people are giving me a serious headache every Friday. They gather, all these women are carrying with them a baby, all, and chanting slogans, asking for rights, their rights, in their local language, something that I couldn't understand at that time. So all these women happened to fall victim of the following story. Saudi business people or Saudi religious clerics who come to Indonesia for business or on a short period of time, they spend 20 days up to 1 month maximum over there. So because they are so religious, they need to have sex with women in Indonesia. How can they do it? They go to these small villages in Indonesia, very poor people, extremely poor people, but real, honest people. And marry young girls, 12 years old, 13 years old. And their dot is only $100. So they give the father $100, and the father gives them his girl, his daughter, thinking that by giving his daughter to somebody coming from the holy land of Islam is a treasure. The guy takes the girl for 20 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, and then he divorces her before leaving because he doesn't need her anymore. The girl finds herself pregnant. After 9 months, she has a baby, but the baby doesn't have any father. So no papers, no identity, and she cannot register the baby. Thousands of young Indonesian women find themselves in this situation every year, every month, every week. When I asked the ambassador, I said, "You should do something. This is bad for your image. You cannot go ahead with this." He told me, "You know, Bashar, I have at the embassy a person called a religious attaché, meaning a guy in charge of the religious matters, like the economic attaché, cultural attaché, military attaché. They have this specific position called the religious attaché. And this religious attaché is stronger than me." This is what he said. "I cannot do anything. I am the ambassador, but I cannot do anything to stop this hemorrhage." That was 1999. And at that time, the Saudi regime used to spend $3 billion on forming Wahhabi Indonesian imams. $3 billion per year to form Wahhabi Indonesian imams in the small villages. This is why, unfortunately, nowadays in Southeast Asia, we have the same ISIL we have in the Middle East. They have it over there. They did the Bali explosion, if you remember, and the series of explosions of the 5-star hotels in Jakarta. This is what the Saudis are. I am Muslim myself. I am proud to be Muslim, but I have nothing to do with this garbage. Nothing to do. We hope that the legislation, which passed yesterday in the House of Representatives and has already passed in the Senate before, allowing the families of 9/11 victims to sue the royal family, of Saudi Arabia. Of Saudi Arabia in the U.S. courts. You know this royal family, what they are doing in the hotels in California and New York. We hope that will pose a new course in the U.S. foreign policy regarding fighting international terrorism and holding responsibilities. Moreover, this terrorist war against Syria is accompanied with policies of Western states, led by the United States administration and Britain, and based on violating international law and the Charter of the United Nations, disrespecting of the sovereignty of the country and acting against the pure will and interest of the Syrian people. Senator Black elaborated enough on this issue, but I would like to add the following, that since the beginning of the Syrian crisis in 2011, the Security Council endorsed and adopted 16 resolutions on Syria. Now we have 16 resolutions adopted by the Security Council on Syria. All these resolutions start with the following in preambular paragraph. The Security Council reiterates the confirmation of the Syrian sovereignty, the territorial integrity of Syria, the political independence of Syria, the principle of non-interfering into the domestic affairs of Syria. All these beautiful Tom and Jerry expressions are in the first paragraph of each resolution. And who violates these principles, sacrosanct principles? The same guys who endorse the resolutions. The same influential people in the Security Council are the ones who are violating these beautiful wordings. Another story. I tell always stories in my meetings so that one day in Geneva, when I was heading the Syrian delegation to the intra-Syrian talks with de Mistura, the special envoy, he was the one who called me, "You are a storyteller." So the story is the following. And this is very, very important one. I will tell you this story chronologically so that you understand the message. In October 2012, meaning 5 months before any use of chemical gas, toxic gas in Syria, because the first attack by using toxic gas took place in Khan al-Asal, a small town in the suburbs of Aleppo. That was in 2013. 5 months in March 2013. I'm talking about September 2012. Meaning 5 months before the first chemical attack took place in Khan al-Asal in Aleppo. Some, what is called, commonly speaking, Syrian opposition activists, found in formed and established in Turkey, an office they called Office of Documentation or Documenting the Use of Chemical Weapons in Syria. They formed and established this office 5 months before any thing related to the issue of the chemical weapons in Syria. And out of a sudden, the OPCW, the Organization of the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which is based in The Hague in the Netherlands, gave this non-governmental center a consultative status to the OPCW, meaning they endorsed the center, which is non-governmental office, and as a consultative body of the OPCW on chemical issues. We didn't understand why they did that, because we didn't expect, that something might happen 5 months after. 5 months after, they attacked Khan al-Assal in Aleppo by using chemical gas, and they killed 18 Syrian soldiers. Of course, CNN wouldn't speak about it. But 18 Syrian soldiers got suffocated by virtue of this attack. Immediately, Al Jazeera Qatari channel started spreading the rumors that the Syrian army used chemical weapons. So the Syrian army used chemical weapons against itself. And the Syrian army killed 18 officers and soldiers of his own staffers. Simultaneously, a series of attacks, similar attacks, took place in Syria. I have the names. You are not familiar with the names, so I will not get into these details. Carla Del Ponte, the Italian lady, who was member of the Independent Investigation Committee of the United Nations on Syria. Carla Del Ponte said that the armed groups of the opposition were the ones who used the chemical weapons in the attack against the town of Khan al-Assal in Aleppo. An Italian lady said that. She was immediately fired. Then we come to the story of the red line, President Obama's red line. Because, again, after this attack at Khan al-Assal in Aleppo, I got instructions the same day the attack against Khan al-Assal took place. The same day, 8 hours after the incident took place, I went myself to the office of the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, United Nations Secretary General. I asked him to help the Syrian government in A, verification of whether chemical weapons were used or not in Khan al-Assal. B, identifying the perpetrators. This is what I asked myself, Ban Ki-moon, at that day. 21 of August, 2013. The guy was very nice, as you know. He asked me to give him some time to consult with the good guys in the Security Council. So he consulted with the good guys, and he came back 2-3 hours later to tell me the following. Mr. Ambassador, tell your government that I will assist your country with a verification to prove whether chemical weapons were used or not in Aleppo. But I'm sorry, I cannot assist you in identifying the perpetrators. From the day one, they knew who did it, but they didn't want to reveal the identity of the perpetrators. We said yes. You know what, Mr. Secretary General? Help us verifying if the chemical weapons were used or not. It took him 4 months and 11 days to send to us an investigation team headed by a Swedish scientist, well-known one, called Dr. Sällström. It took him and the Security Council 4 months and 11 days to send a team to investigate whether chemical weapons were used on. You know that these kind of weapons, they evaporate. You cannot trace them. After a couple days, they are not there. More importantly, after 4 months and 11 days, Dr. Sällström was in Damascus, and President Obama made his speech and drew the red line. That was, Obama did his speech on the 20th of August. Dr. Sällström was in Damascus at that time, on his way to Aleppo to investigate what happened in Khan al-Assal. He was still at the door of the hotel in Damascus, getting into his car. Out of a sudden, we hear that another chemical attack took place in the suburbs of Damascus. Out of a sudden, incidentally, another attack took place in the suburbs of Damascus. That was done to shift the attention from Khan al-Assal to another place. Because they didn't want, initially speaking, they didn't want anybody to investigate what happened in Khan al-Assal. So the best way to do it was to shift, to create another spot of attention somewhere else. And who did it? According to the French anchors, very important French anchors, Georges Malbruno and Christian Chénaud, who wrote an important book on this matter called On the Roads to Damascus, like St. Paul did. In these books, they said that the French Minister for Foreign Affairs, Laurent Fabius, was behind this attack. It is a French book. But CNN will never speak about it, will never say anything about it. You will never hear anything about these issues in the mainstream media, because that would corroborate the accuracy of our statements. Then isn't it paradoxal that Obama makes his warning and drawing his red line on the 20th of August, and then incidentally, the chemical attacks in the suburbs of Damascus took place 1 day after, on the 21st? As if somebody is trying to, you know, Mr. President, they crossed the line. Go and punish them. Go and kill President Assad the way your predecessor killed Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi or whatever. Isn't it funny? Would the Syrian government use chemical weapons while Dr. Sällström is in Damascus? I mean, I know that I'm sorry, maybe I have spoken too long. Okay, I will finalize. I told you I could speak for hours about I'm really grateful to all of you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some insights from inside, something that you have never heard about. I try my best as ambassador of my country to share this information with the media accredited to the United Nations. But you know what? Every time I take the floor next to the Security Council, where there are usually between 50 up to 100 reporters accredited from all over the world, accredited to the UN as reporters and journalists. When I take the floor, 50 of them disappear instantly. Because they don't want They don't want, not to hear because they know what I would say. They don't want to report. The point for them is that by listening, they will be somehow obligated to report. So the best way to avoid reporting is by boycotting, by not being there. I'm saying this because too many people, too many ambassadors at the United Nations, they come to me and say, you know, Bashar, you are right. Your government is right. We know the truth, but we cannot say it. You can, God bless you, but we cannot say it. So the mask has fallen. The truth is there. If you dig a little bit, you will find scandals taking place at this United Nations. Scandals. It's not a place to maintain peace and international peace and security. It is a place where to demolish peace and security, where to destabilize societies. It's very easy at the United Nations to destroy a country. It's very easy. I know this is a signal for me to stop. I thank you very much. I still have too many things to say, but out of respect for the audience, I thank you very much. One word, if you allow me to thank the LaRouche Foundation also. My old friends in New York, they are doing great actually. Then the Schiller Institute, of course, and this beautiful audience. I'm grateful to you. Sorry for being too long. God bless you.